What's going on, everybody? This is Sean of Raw Select Music. Today I want to talk about this album right here. This is Amon Tobin's side project Two Fingers' second album entitled Stunt Rhythms, released on Ninja Tune's hip-hop-oriented sub-label Big Data on September 4th, 2012. Seeing as how this album is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year, and I've always been interested in hearing this record for myself, I was very happy to find a copy of it for dirt cheap over on my preferred record outlet here in Japan. Shoutouts to Disc Union. And now that I've had a chance to listen to it, I wanted to share my thoughts and opinions of this guy and let you know whether or not it's worth checking out. So with all that being said, yeah, let's talk about this guy. So for those of you who don't know, born in Rio de Janeiro in 1972 and currently residing in LA, Amon Santos de Arrojo Tobin. God, that was miserable. Here's the fucking name right here. Started making sample-based music as a teenager in Brighton and eventually released his first EP under the name Cujo in '95 through a London-based label called 9 Bar Records. Shortly after the release of his debut album Adventures in Foam in '96, he would sign to Ninja Tune and release a series of records that would be widely considered not only some of the best albums on the label, but the best albums in the genre of drum and drill and bass at the time, becoming one of the label's flagship artists. After largely ditching record-based samples to focus more on found sound live instrumentation sampling with large doses of digital editing and effects with the release of his score for Ubisoft's Chaos Theory in 2005, as well as his 6th and 7th albums Fully Room and Isom, respectively, he teamed up with British drum and bass producer DoubleClick in 2009 for their collaborative bass dubstep garage hip-hop project called Two Fingers. Stunt Rhythms, this album right here, would follow a few years later in 2012, this time being a solo project, with it being more focused on fusing hip-hop with bass music to speaker-destroying results. In 2019, after a long absence of releasing new music, Amon Tobin released 2 albums, Fear and a Handful of Dust, along with Long Stories, as well as going completely independent, with every album since then being released under his own imprint, No Mark. Since going completely independent, he's released 3 albums under his own name, 1 under Two Fingers, entitled Fight Fight Fight, 1 under a new rock-oriented project called Only Child Tyrant, as well as a whole slew of full-lengths, EPs, and singles, all under his new digital subscription model over on his Bandcamp. Moving back to Stunt Rhythms, the album was largely well-received in 2012, with it earning an average of 76 on Metacritic, with most outlets, except for Pitchfork, giving this album positive reviews. So what do I think of all this? I am absolutely in love with this album. Whether Pitchfork is actually on point with their idea of saying that this album is just like an Amon Tobin sketchbook hard drive dump of bass music tracks that he had been making throughout the years, I really don't care. Because this is everything that I've been looking for in bass music for the longest time. Because I have never been really a huge fan of the American style, or bastardization, if you will, of dubstep, but I've always been interested in the fusion of sub-destroying bass with hip-hop drum beats. And essentially, that's exactly what I got from this album. This album is absolutely pulverizing on your speakers for its entire hour-long duration. And one of the things that Pitchfork had pointed to in their review was the fact that a lot of the tracks on here aren't very long. And I'm kind of okay with that, because it means that ideas are moved through so quickly that they never feel like they overstay their welcome. And every track on here, while the framework is still fairly similar throughout the 21 tracks on here, there's enough ideas between each track to keep it from ever feeling stale. Now, it should also be stated that I'm a little bit biased towards this album because it contains 2 tracks that I have been looking for the longest time are contained on this album. Fool's Rhythm and Elmer's Rhythm are both 2 tracks that I have known about for the longest time, but didn't know the name of them. And while going back and listening to this album, I discovered that they were on here, and I was already in love with this album as a result of that. But going through all the other stuff that I didn't know about this record made me love it even more. The opener is this amazing, gargantuan, monster bass track that just rips and tears through your speakers, and while the drums may not be the crazy heavy drill and bass style intricate that some of his previous tracks are like. I actually love the immediacy of basically everything on this record, including that first track. And that's pretty much consistent throughout here. There's immediate gut punch element to this record that just stays consistent throughout, that in the hands of a lesser producer, it probably would have made for a really boring album. But ultimately, I found myself being completely gripped with this record throughout its entire hour-long duration, except for the fact that it does get bogged down a little bit in its listening experience with the combination of instrumentals and then the vocal tracks thrown in. So as a listening experience, it does kind of get a little repetitive in that regard, but not enough for me to actually consider it like a fault within this record. Ultimately, I honestly don't know what else to say. If you want masterful sound engineering that goes along with some of the hardest, heaviest hitting hip-hop influenced bass music that you've ever heard, this album is, man, the aggression, the atmosphere, the sound design, everything about this record to me is absolutely masterful. And quite honestly, I'm kind of surprised that this album doesn't get more celebrated in Amon Tobin's catalog. So hopefully from this video, what you get is that if you're a fan of hip-hop and you like bass music, that you should definitely give this album a listen. Don't sleep on this one like I did for so many years, and make sure you pick it up if you can. So as you might expect, Two Fingers, Stunt Rhythms comes highly, highly recommended from me. So that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks as always for watching. If you've listened to this record for yourself, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. If you want to hear this record for yourself, please head over to my WordPress blog, because that's where I post music links to any of the records that I talk about on this channel. And make sure you go follow me over on Twitch for Live from the Record Room, my weekly DJ live stream there. You will hear me play records like the ones that I talk about in these videos, as well as a whole host of records in my collection that I don't get a chance to talk about on this channel. Links to everything, as always, down in the description. That's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks as always for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. So until then, peace out!